All right, so notes about images that I'll be sharing. So this is a text-heavy lesson today, and there will be a lot of images pretty much for the sake of entertainment, something to look at while I talk. So unless an image is specifically referenced, then it's just for decoration. Most of the images are from Twitter, and so I don't have proper like titling for it because most of the times they don't have titles. And every image you can click on and it should take you to the source. All right. So first things first, what is this class? Okay. This is called Understanding Art, Art Appreciation, or Intro to Art, or other names for it. This class is focused on learning how to interact and learn about art. So it's important to note that we're learning about art. We're not necessarily making art. We will be making art if you're one of my students, but it doesn't matter if you're skilled or not. Um, and so again, just a reminder, like this image has nothing to do with the text necessarily. It's just um, a lot of images that I liked. Okay, so anybody with ability to perceive art can judge it without having to learn about it. So yeah, everyone can make judgments, right? Obviously, we do that all the time with people, art, movies, etc. Um, the important thing is for this class, we're going to learn to understand our judgment more, to be able to explain ourselves better, and to understand our own judgments better. So this is basically giving you tools to better interpret artworks. Because again, everyone is able to judge at any point. Um, since you're a kid, you know what TV shows you like, you know what books you like. So this is giving you more of a vocabulary on how to say in more, to communicate it more effectively. Okay, so the second point, not only will you be able to look at art more critically, you will be encouraged to question it. So this is an important point to me because, it's that we're going to analyze art, but we're going to want to ask questions about it. Why is it relevant? Who made this? Does it matter who made this? Um, because this is a topic I'll talk a lot about. We're basically shown important works of art, such as the Mona Lisa. Why are we being shown that kind of stuff, right? Who's picking this for us? So it's important for me um, to talk about why am I picking these pieces of art that we're talking about instead of just picking any old thing. So I have reasons I choose things. Like this, I like this painting on the right just because it's really cool. It appeared on my Twitter feed. And I felt it was pretty fun to share. What will we be doing in this class? So again, we're basically learning how to explain our feelings towards art using vocabulary, words, through processes, um, through definitions, ideas, concepts, themes, all sorts of things, which obviously we'll talk about in the duration of the class. Um, so you are visually literate. So that's kind of I wouldn't even say it's a fancy word. It's just a phrase that means like learning how to decode images. For example, any image you see, you don't just see it as lines and colors and shapes placed randomly, right? You can read these words. You can deduce that this is probably Swiss cheese, who has rough skin, you know. And I don't know what kind of cheese that is, or this one is. I know this is Baby Bell. And then we can deduce that this is not a real rat living inside our computer screen. It's a picture of a rat. So even just decoding that, you have a sense of visual literacy. The In case this doesn't make sense, it's just the rat saying, "I don't care, you're just cheese," essentially. Um, so we're going to take a look at a few pictures. So look at this picture, and we're going to take a look at really quickly what is literally in the picture. So we see a slab of granite, which is this structure right here. Writing is etched into the granite, which we would recognize as words, and it's surrounded by grass and leaves. So we understand the context of, okay, this is most likely going to be a gravestone, right? It could be a picture of kind of anything that the photographer took a picture of. They could have made it specifically to take a picture of, but through our visual literacy, what we've known growing up, looking at images and being educated on what images are, what they mean, we can deduce that this is probably an actual gravestone with the, I forgot what this is called, not epitaph. Maybe that's what it's called, but it says, well, that was a waste of time. So what I'm deducing from this image is, okay, Peter Compton's the name of the person who died, was born in, I think that's October 5th, 1932 to January 3rd, 2009, because this is taken from a British Twitter account. And, well, that was a waste of time. So we're assuming that this guy wanted to have this as a joke, that his life was a waste of time, just sort of as a funny way to acknowledge, like, oh, stuff happened when I was alive. I would probably guess, like, he's either just funny or maybe he really did have a terrible life, or both, right? And so we're getting a sense of this person's personality just through this inanimate object. Oh, hi, dear Kathy. So there's a lot going on here that we easily take for granted just because we already know how to read images and objects, and how words help, how our experiences in real life inform us of what goes on in this image. Here's another example. So what we literally see is just rectangles of different colors, rectangles and other shapes. And the caption, which you don't see here, has the hashtags digital art and digital painting. There's a couple more hashtags. So what is this about? Is this about anything? Are these just randomly placed blocks of color? What are we seeing here? Okay, so what I would deduce here, again, is a shiny pot. I was going to say pan. I think it's a pot. So the reason I say that is because, well, pots are silver, so we have the silver surface. Well, what about these weird shapes? So we can probably deduce that these are reflections, because when we think about shiny objects, pots, which are shiny objects, we often see reflections. So that turns this from just random shapes and random colors into something that has a little bit more semblance to real life. So we understand that this is probably a painting, a digital painting of a pot. And so what did these mean to you? So these are definitely a little bit more opaque. By opaque, I just meaning not as simple to understand. But it depends on your level of how much time you spend on the internet. Because to some of you, these might just be like a random guy's head, some math stuff, and just a picture of a girl in a car. But to those of you who knows what these mean, you might laugh or you might roll your eyes, but you'll understand why I put these here. So if you're not sure what these are, you can right here in the text. This first one, all you have to do is search kappa, K-A-P-P-A. The second one, you'll search loss. Actually, you'll more specifically want to search, is this loss? And this one is, I'm in my mom's car, and this is part of a video that one of my favorite vines, and by me saying vine, that might conjure a lot of images or memories, or you might think, what does this have to do with plants? So people who have spent way too much time on the internet will certainly know what all of these are. Obviously, I'm one of these people, but I will say I never use kappa. And a little hint is the platform I'm using, Twitch, uses this emoji basically called Kappa, which I think is for sarcasm, but I never use it. So I don't really know the context in which it's used. So even though I know of its existence, I don't see it enough to remember what it is all the time. I only know because I prepared for this lecture. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about myself. And I'll talk about why. So these are my stats. Of course, my pronouns are he, they. My name's Daniel P. Lopez. I've taught 102, which is this class, 120, which is beginning Photoshop, and Illustrator, 121, which is intermediate Photoshop and Illustrator, 122, which is video, and 263, which is digital photography. I live in Eugene, Oregon, USA, so I don't live in the Albany area, so I don't go to school unless I really have to, and I really haven't had a reason since the beginning of the pandemic, except last term I taught 1 week of classes, and then a couple of students got struck with COVID, so we had to basically cancel class. I'm 34, I'm Pisces, and my Myers-Briggs is INFP. I refuse to acknowledge any sort of Harry Potter houses things for obvious reasons. I studied BFA photography in undergrad, and I minored in human communication. So basically what human communication is, it's studying human behavior and making it academic. So honestly, it's kind of a weird, useless major. It's like, let's take common sense and make it into a whole program of study. So it's interesting. The reason I chose it is because I've always been a very awkward person. I still am, arguably. And it helped me learn more about how to communicate with people effectively. Okay, I did my MFA in art at U of O. I was multidisciplinary, so I studied all sorts of different media and materials, but I mostly taught digital art, so I kind of ended up going to that. I have 2 kids, Barry, my corn snake, who you'll see in the next slide, and Morgan, my praying mantis, who I talked about, and who is right here. What a beautiful woman. I have a couple of spouses, or 3 spouses listed here. I have many. Long story, but and I am on the LGBTQIA spectrum. So, as you can see here, I made my own pride stickers using a piece of regular printer paper and what is it called? Packing tape, and I wouldn't recommend it. It falls off very easily. I'm 3/4 Italian, 3/4 Mexican, quarter Italian, and born and raised in America. Okay. So the reason I'm telling you this is so you know more about me, so you know where I'm coming from. And again, I'll talk more about why I'm discussing that later. Okay, here's the holiday card I made and we sent out to our family. So Nick is my brother. This is my mom, Terry, who may or may not be watching right now. Gerard, this otter, and Amicus. These are 2 of my husbands. My other husband, Bernard the bear, he's not in here because it would be just too much information. Barry is my currently alive daughter from this. I didn't have Morgan when I took this picture. And Francis and Dr. Baby, they're my 2 late praying mantises. They died last year. They only last about 8 to 12 months usually. So yeah, they passed away and they had decent lives, I hope. I was their dad, so I hope so. Okay, so here's a few things that I taught last term. So basic animation, using Photoshop. This is recreating a case insert. So I took the PS3 case for Dark Souls 2, and I kind of imitated the photograph. It would make more sense if I had the original image itself, but trust me, it looks pretty similar. I also taught how to Photoshop images that you make into real life photos and creating logo. And this is my logo for myself as an artist and teacher. Obviously, I don't wear glasses. You can't see me wearing a cap because I have headphones on. But so it's just a symbolic representation of me. And personal art. So I'm just going to go to my website. The reason I'm going to my website is because I use this class as a reason to really get off my butt and get it going. All right, so it's very simple. I'm very into low tech. So I'm gonna show you a few things that I do. So this link to games shows all the games that I make. So I make tabletop games using cards and die, and it's a lot of writing. I make spreadsheet games and PowerPoint games and other games. Sometimes they're puzzles, sometimes they're just essays, sometimes you can walk around and stuff. But yeah, I've made probably 30 games or so. Teaching. So this section is actually linking to my Understanding Art course from last year. So what I'm teaching this year is very similar to what I have last year. However, a couple of other colleagues and I, we really updated the course information so that it's free for anyone to use. And so a lot of these are outdated. They're still relevant, but yeah, I'm going to update it with the ones from this year. Comics, this is a fun one for me. So from December 10th to December 9th of the next year, 2020 to 2021, I drew comics nightly. Sometimes they were like normal comics like this, sometimes they're abstract comics, but it was just a goal to have a habit of creating, because I do suffer from depression, and when you have depression, it's kind of hard to be motivated to do anything. And so by forcing a habit, you sort of get in the loop of actually creating stuff, and it's very, very helpful. So even if you don't feel like doing something, like this one I did in probably like 3 minutes. Like the fact that I did something with an aesthetic I like, which is very sloppy and trying to imitate how I might draw as a kid. Yeah, it's something that's important to work through as an artist. Is you'll have times where you're not creative, and you just got to work through them. And also, another big thing I do is the game Quake from 1996, which is a shooting game. I make custom levels for it where you don't shoot. I don't want to make anything violent. So, like this first one, for example, it's called Gay Kisses for Christmas, where you go to different characters and you basically just kiss them and stuff like that. So yeah, and I always make it a point to make it them kind of like artsy, or like this is a copy basically of my local skate park. So yeah, I'm really all about like sticking to my ideals as far as what I create. Because a lot of people who are like anti-war will make like a game about war, about shooting, and to me that's fine, because you can't do everything like that aligns with your values perfectly. I mean, you can, but even I get off that path sometimes. So I can't blame them, but for me, it's really important for me to do that. Okay, so here's some influences that I really love. So this first one is a few things in once. Obviously, I like comics. I love illustration, as opposed to abstraction. So abstraction, which is something we'll talk about more in this term. That's different than illustration, because illustration's not necessarily about creating a beautiful picture, but about communicating something. And making something beautiful is part of it, but I would say communicating is arguably more important with illustration. But I didn't necessarily like study that throughout my entire art career in school, so I might be wrong, but that's the way I see it. I also love furry art, which I'll talk about more, and you'll see quite a bit of furry art, meaning anthropomorphic animals, which again, that means humans that have like animalistic attributes. So they're basically humans that have a a shell or a skin of another species, right? It's like everyone grows up with them in cartoons like Wile E. Coyote, who made me a furry, to like Bugs Bunny, Donald Duck, like all of those are anthropomorphic characters. And again, we'll talk about that more. I love naive art quite a bit. So you saw that I did that drawing, that comic that was a very sloppy. That I said try to imitate what I might draw when I was a kid. I really like that because for me, it's I love breaking the rules and I love going against what's expected when it comes to art, because that's more interesting to me, specifically because um, I really enjoy seeing things that aren't possible, right? And I love realism. I'm trying to learn how to do that better, but to me, just going outside of what's expected or what's real is just gorgeous to me. Basically, the way I like to say it is, I don't like to get high, but like I want to see things that um, that would appear as if you were high or something like that, and that blends into surrealism, like weird stuff, right? Again, I love things that are extremely unusual, that are odd. Something about that just really makes me happy and excited. Again, I love, like, even a lot of my comics I've made are autobiographical and very plain and stark. So definitely have a love for that. Um, but yeah, I really value weirdness. I don't know, something about that's just really interesting to me. I don't know why. It's just always been that way. And then influences that are not visual art. So I play a lot of video games. However, sorry to report, I don't play multiplayer games. I don't like playing games with other people. To me, video games are about um, not dealing with people because I'm an introvert. Even though I'm an instructor, as soon as I get off this, I'll definitely need to relax and rest my brain. So a lot of the games I play are usually smaller games because I don't honestly don't have patience for longer games unless it's Dark Souls, which was very hard to get into. But yeah, most of these games are less than an hour long. They're made by small creators, and I kind of like that. Not necessarily more than bigger games, it's just different. And because they're smaller and shorter, I tend to gravitate towards those because I'd rather play a lot of different things than one big thing. And that kind of goes with my art as well. I prefer making a lot of stuff that takes not that much time instead of a big project that'll take a year. But I might change that at some point. Okay, movies. I like all sorts of movies. Everything from Despicable Me to The House That Jack Built, which is a very violent, awful movie about a psychopath killer. Um, yeah, I really don't. I can be entertained by a lot. So, yeah, it's all over the map. Books. So I read a lot of visual novels, like this one about Muhammad Ali, and I read um, regular fiction novels, like this is a mystery, Bullet Train, which is gonna come out this year with Brad Pitt and some other people. Um, yeah, this is comedy, Stephen King, this short absurdist essay. Um, so I like to read a bunch of different things, and music. I am obsessed with music. I mean, honestly, who isn't? I spend most of my money on music. I have like a couple hundred CDs, 300 actually. Um, yeah, and to me, music, and this is pretty true with art as well. I'm more interested in the instrumentation and the atmosphere and the feeling rather than the lyrics and the meaning behind it, because I can be kind of shallow. Same thing with artworks. If there's like a story behind it, I probably won't care unless it's pretty, you know. So yeah, and I have no shame about that. It's something that I wish I was better at, but that's the way the cookie crumbles in the jungle. I just score pretty low on uh, reading comprehension, basically, and comprehension of symbols and metaphors. All right, so let's talk about you. All right, so ask yourself, why are you in this class? So some of you, it's compulsory, you have to take it. Um, some of you want to take it. Some of you, it's both. You're excited to be here, even though you're required to take it. Um, some of you, you might not be getting college credit for this course, but you just want to learn about art. So all of these are valid. There's probably other reasons why y'all are in this class, but these are ones I pointed out. Okay, and then you'll want to think about what your experience with art is. So some people go to galleries all the time. Some people have never been to a gallery. Some people only go when they're forced to. Honestly, that's kind of me. Some people might have a PhD in art history. I don't know why you would be in this class, but I would appreciate all the same. And this last one, did your mom work at an art department at a community college? So you met a lot of art instructors? Yeah, that's me. My my mom worked at an art community college since before I was born, and yeah, I've met a lot of art instructors, and now I have a master's degree in art, and I teach art. So, yeah, I kind of like art. All right, subject position. Okay, so this is an important thing to think about as well. Remember, this is a section about you. So you want to think about who you are as a person and how that affects everything about what you see. So someone who's, let's say, is like 72 years old might see things differently than me, who's 34, who might see things differently from someone who's 20 or 5 years old, right? So think about that, how the more you learn, the more your viewpoints can change. Think about your class. Like if you grew up rich, you're much more likely to have spent time around art because there's money and idle time. Whereas if you're poor, you might have to work a bunch of jobs and not have time for leisure. Morgan is basically eating my skin because of the salt on my hand. It kind of tickles. So again, we'll talk more about this later, but everything about you matters in how you present, how you approach this class. So keep that in mind, because there's people who will know more than you and people who will know less than you, and all of that's okay. And we're all equal here. As hippie as that sounds, it's true. So yeah, I didn't create this class. So I'm teaching this class with the assumption that I'm teaching total beginners who don't really know much about art to people who know everything about art, which is impossible, but in theory. So what is art? So real quick, you can write it down. You don't have to, but without thinking about it, write down the first thing that comes to mind. What is art? And I'm going to take a drink of my tea while I'll wait. Hey, honey. She really likes him. Okay. So feel free to drop in chat if you want. Let's see. But yeah, I'm just going to continue. So what is the definition of art in this class? There's no singular definition. I know some people kind of hate that. They want to have a specific definition, but oh boy, it's the more you know about art, the more you'll understand there's so much you don't know about art, which is basically Dunning-Kruger effect. Like if you think you know everything about art, you really don't, because even the most studied PhD person, art historian who's been studying for like 70 plus years, there's so much art that they've missed. Like maybe they miss art from China, for example, or miss art from the 1700s. So there's always going to be something that you miss when it comes to art. And you'll see, we'll talk more about art versus craft and how that changes things. Not this week, but another week. And so what I mean by this, again, is, yeah, there's no set in stone definition of what art is. It's very messy and complicated. There are things that, as sorry, I just love this rat. I think it's from RuneScape, which I've never played, but I think this rat's really cute. So we're going to talk about different definitions of art. Some of the things are definitely going to be universally considered art. Some of the things might be contested, that maybe this probably isn't art. So we're going to talk about a lot of different definitions of what art can be and what it might exclude and what it might include. It's pretty interesting. So here's dictionary.com's definition. I'm not going to read it, but this is what their definition is. You can go by it if you want to, but you'll see for the purposes of this class that it's limited. Okay, and so this is, let me check the time, 4:37. Okay, so this is arguably the most important part, is what do you want from this class? And this is the takeaway. You will only get out of art what you put into it. Now that you're taking this class, you are forever responsible for putting effort into thinking and talking about art. You're not allowed to dismiss an artwork right away. You are not allowed to like a piece and not understand why. It is illegal and you will go to jail and everybody will cry because you didn't do your job as an art appreciator. Okay, so that's obviously exaggerated. But essentially what I'm saying is you're learning to really think about art in a way where you can be critical about it without just dismissing it. That's my biggest pet peeve, is just dismissing stuff. Hell, I do it myself too. For example, a lot of Impressionism. I'm not a big fan of Impressionism right now in my life. And so I'm just like, I don't really want to think about it right now. So I'm guilty of that, but we'll go more over context about that. So this is important. Think about why you like or dislike an artwork. All right, so the first point, consider the elements and principles. We're going to talk about what those are in a future lesson, I believe week 3. Okay, so does it look like it take a lot of work? Look closely at the details. So for example, is an AI generated artwork. Basically, images were fed into a computer program, and this was the result of it. I don't understand how it works, but it's kind of weird. Right, so look at the details closely. And the more closely you look at the details, instead of looking at something for like 5 seconds and moving on, that'll reveal a lot more about the artwork. Okay, which is hard to do with like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, let's be honest. So if there's something you like, maybe save it to your phone or your desktop to look at later. I try to do that, but I fail quite often. Does it look like it took minimal effort? Does the subject matter fascinate you? Try to interpret it or read about it. So again, this is my weakness, is looking deeper into the painting, what it means, what are the themes, what are the symbols that go on. I'm kind of good at looking at it from the outside, like who made this, why did they make this, that kind of thing. But as far as like, what does this orange in this painting represent? I don't know. It's a yummy fruit. There's two or three other instructors who go more into detail into symbols. They're really good at that, and I just feel like a total kindergartner when it comes to that. Like, yeah, I can decode it, but honestly, I prefer to look at things primarily visually, just like I do with music. It's audio, right? I don't necessarily need to know the meanings behind the lyrics. If the music sounds good, if the words sound nice, that's what matters to me. But if, like, for example, I'm in an art appreciation class, I'm asked to think or write about an artwork, then I will go deep into it. It's just that my default is to just appreciate it on the surface, and maybe something will hook me into wanting to look into it further. So again, it's important to not dismiss artwork. Does it look like it took minimal effort? So a lot of people will think about like paintings that are just white canvases or just a simple square. And it's understandable to get mad and angry about them. And we'll specifically talk about abstraction and white canvases later on in the term. So it's easy to dismiss that and say that's crap, that took no effort. My my kid could do that. Um, those are the kind of works that require a little bit more like research or more time with it, um, or knowing who the artist is in order to really understand it. But like there's this painter Yves Klein who does a lot of like just plain blue paintings. I think they're beautiful because that like the color of it is just such a beautiful blue. Whether it should cost like hundreds of thousands of dollars is a different story. But if I had that painting in my room, I would like it, because I love the color blue. If it was like a mustard yellow, I might think, I don't, ugh, gross, Um, but if it was in my room, I'd probably spend more time with it and want to think about it more. Okay, does it look pointless? Same thing. Read more about the context. Do you hate that it costs so much? That's a huge issue with people, and we'll talk more about art and money more. Um, Art that you do enjoy. So this one can actually be more challenging to engage with than art that you don't like, because you can think, oh, this is really cool, and then just kind of stop at that. Um, but yeah, think about it more in detail. So a good way to do things to understand why you like it is tell someone who doesn't have art vocabulary why you like it, why it moves you. Like this, for example, is the handsome wolf from Bad Guys, I think, an upcoming animated movie. Like, to someone who doesn't know it's from a movie, you might just think, oh, why is this like wolf human thing dressed like this and like flipping a coin into the air? Um, a Any furry in the furry community will tell you a lot about the movie. But yeah, like explain to someone like what this is, why you like it, like maybe why you like this character, why you connect with it. Do research on it, of course, and write about how it makes you feel. So that is another good way to do things, is just write it down. Because it's a different medium than thinking, honestly, and you have to commit to words, whereas just thoughts can just exist as clouds. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about modern art briefly, and I only have 16 minutes. All right, so what is the definition of modern art? It's complicated, but it's usually not what people think. So the kind of art that when people say modern art sucks, they probably mean contemporary art, meaning within the last since the mid-century, mid 20th century, since 1950 or so onwards. Modern usually just means, to people, that just usually means like what's current or what's going on. Some people might use the definition modern might just be art that they don't like. But the more correct term is contemporary. If we're on the street and we're talking about art, I don't care if you call it modern or contemporary, but for the sake of this class, because this is an art appreciation class, it does matter. Okay, so we're not gonna watch these videos together. You're gonna be doing this on your own. So this is a video of Andy Rooney, who, I don't know why people like him. He just complains about stuff. That's his shtick. Why would you put more negativity in the world? So when you watch this video, think about his criticisms and categorizations. So what he talks about as being modern art, there's no connection between like the cows he talks about with the sculptures he talks about. He's just painting everything that he doesn't like as modern art. So that video sucks. And this video with Morley Safer, who you don't see in here, this video is a little bit better. So with this video, he does talk to artists about the artwork and talks about the curators about the artworks and collectors. And so he does go that extra step, but he kind of just stops there and he doesn't really try to understand further. He just listens to them and doesn't like think about, oh, why might this be cool or important or interesting? He just kind of judges them, but at least at least he takes time to talk to people about it instead of Andy Rooney, rest in pieces. I could use another word, but I don't want to. That would be rude. Yeah, so think about the differences between these two. However, again, like he doesn't really know what modern or contemporary art really is. Again, if it's just some sort of random conversation, that's fine. But he's specifically talking um, about art in a context about art and artist, and using his platform as a quote unquote expert on his taste, which is obviously uninformed. That's a whole bag of worms. But anyways, yeah. So he does take some effort, but not all the effort in the world. So I give him like an F, 50%. So let's take lessons from these videos, which you will watch. So I'm going to pretend like you did watch them. So number one, blanket statements and judgments are very unhelpful. All right, this is a big one because when you think about modern art, even in using it correctly, or contemporary art, or abstract sculpture, or minimalism, let's say you hate minimalist sculpture, for example. Saying you hate all of it is a blanket judgment because there could be artwork within that you might actually like. Personally, an example for me is country music. I just don't vibe with country music. I didn't grow up with it. It seems to be more lyrics based and less about like the kind of atmosphere that I like. But it would kind of be rude and untrue if I said I hated all country music. I mean, I like some Johnny Cash. That's some like beginner country music, but there might be some like maybe outlaw country that I like, Merle Haggard or whatever. I don't know. I haven't explored a whole lot, but to me, it's just more about, okay, like I just don't know a whole lot about JRPGs. I'm not really going to say all of them suck because, hey, I play Dark Souls, or I don't really like the style of anime. I'm sure there's some that I like. But I'm not going to say all anime sucks because there's always room for the possibility of me liking something. Okay, so another part goes hand in hand is sometimes artists do wildly different things within the same medium. So this is like a still life painting. This is surreal still life painting. Some people just do hyper realistic, photorealistic still life paintings. So saying still life painting sucks and is boring, you're very much taking for granted that you're assuming that still life painting is just one thing, whereas this is like a weird ghost like image with a lot of weird stuff going on, and I love it for that. So instead of using blanket statements and judgments, look at each artwork individually. So again, that's important. So like I said, like I love Tennessee Flat Top Box by Johnny Cash, for example. I love it. I think it has the one that is my favorite melody of his. I don't know if I'm using musical terms correctly. So like I can say I don't like country. Well, I like Tennessee Flat Top Box by Johnny Cash, for example. And I think that's a more helpful tool because like if you're talking to someone like I hate country music, they might get defensive or agree with you and say, yeah, it sucks. But if you say like, but I do like Tennessee Flat Top Box, like they might say, oh yeah, I like that song too. Or like, oh, you actually might like this other thing. So by keeping your mind open to possibilities, you might end up going down a rabbit hole of stuff you might fall in love with. So think about it in those terms. Individual artworks. Okay, consider many works, not just extreme examples. All right, so in those two videos, you'll see that Morley Safer and Andy Rooney often, well, most people, when they talk about contemporary art, they think about maybe the Piss Christ, which is a photograph of a crucifix dunked in the artist's piss, who is religious, by the way. that's an extreme example. It got the NEA, National Endowment of the Arts, like defunded um, funds for artists because of that. And people might think like, okay, this is the face of what contemporary art is, like a crucifix dipped in piss. Like, what are artists doing nowadays? That's like one of the most extreme examples, right? So a lot of people doing contemporary photographs about religion might make it more subtle, or might make it more nuanced. Because let's be honest, that's kind of like a shock piece of art. It got attention, but like people just miss the message, right? Yeah, so it's the same thing with like like movies, for example. Like like some people might say like, oh, movies suck, they're just superheroes nowadays. No, they're not. That's just the most successful right now, right? So like there's a lot of different movies coming out, documentaries. They might not be as high budget and have as big advertising budgets as superhero movies, but those superhero movies are the extreme example because there's what risen to the top culturally. I'm not saying they're good or bad. They're just the most visible right now, as far as I can tell. All right, so it's important to not dismiss current movies as a whole. Look for movies that seem interesting to you. Go to your local theater. Look on the internet. Look at art theaters, whatever. Look at things differently. Okay, and then yeah, also check out artwork by other artists who aren't as popular, because things that are popular often um, they often have something that pop out about them, hence popular, right? So like they're made to stand out. They're made to be like catchy in some way, which is awesome. But they're not. They don't define everything, right? So like Lil Nas X, who I love, like he doesn't define country music or rap, right? He's just one extreme example. So think about other hip hop artists that are more low key, and that's a better way to think about things than just Lil Nas X. Um, be open to new ideas. So my biggest pet peeve is just people who have a singular point of view and are not open to learning new things. I hate saying that because it makes me sound like a jerk, like looking down on people, saying it might sound like I'm better than other people, but at the same time, like I do want to make sure you know that I do have a closed mind sometimes. You know, like I talked about country music earlier. Like I don't I don't really know much about country music. I was talking to someone the other day about jazz music. How I'm pretty sure I like jazz music, but I'm not at the point in my life where I know about it yet. So it's kind of like not my thing right now. It probably will be later in my life. So um, there will be instances where you can't, well, you're not going to be open to everything all the time. But when you're a student, and especially in this class, it's important to like look at this piece of artwork and think about it more deeply than it sucks. So one thing I'm going to try to do more is include artwork that I don't like into these slides, because everything's pretty much everything I like. I think this is really adorable. Um, so yeah, it's okay to think something's crap. Basically, what this is saying. Um, but think about it deeply. You might still think it's crap, but at least you gave it a chance. And sometimes when it's like a hateful piece of artwork, like Nazi propaganda or white supremacist stuff, anything discriminatory, like, yeah, it's fine to dismiss that. That's purposefully hateful. But if it's not really doing that, then take another look at it and see why other people might enjoy it. Or, yeah, just try not to stick with your first thought, because that could be very limiting. Another thing is, it doesn't have to be good or bad. You don't have to judge it. So something might be like, I like it for this reason, but not for this other reason, and that's definitely fine. Think about it. If someone made this for you, would that change the perspective, your perspective on it? If it was hanging in your mom's kitchen, would that change how you look at it? So think about it in different ways other than just the immediate way. All right. So yeah, and just listen, do a little bit of work, do a little bit of research. I have 4 minutes. Um, so I'm just making sure I don't squish my daughter. So why those videos are harmful? So these are just two people's opinions, right? So what harm can it do? A lot of harm. So the reason I say that is because these are men who had a position in television. They're very influential. I think they're both dead. And so a lot of people listen to their opinions, and because they're presented on the television, they're given a show. Obviously, they're not some random person off the street. They're given some sense of authority, and since they have some sense of authority, you're more likely to listen to their views. Okay, and since their views were not very educated, and morally safer's is a little bit better. Since they weren't really trying to understand, it's a problem, because a lot of people adopted those views. And the reason I can say this is because if you look at the YouTube comments, it's a lot of people just agreeing with them. Like, you're like, right on, Andy. Like, modern art sucks. This isn't even art. My kid could do this. This is crap. Like, it's just kind of depressing going through those. I would say if it was a more thoughtful way of saying why these suck, I would totally be fine with it. But it's very sad to discredit a lot of art just by making your opinions known on this in such a wide audience. you know. So yeah, but you know what? I can't help it. People on YouTube do stuff like this all the time, and they discredit art. It sucks, because there's a lot of modern art that those people would enjoy, that would be considered modern or contemporary art. It's just that they're not looking at those things, right? I'm not going to assume that they're doing things to get the biggest reaction out of people, because I don't know their intent. But what they are showing, regardless of the intent, isn't really helping art look good, in a sense. So again, that's their opinion, but it really influences people, right? And I would say the most helpful thing they could do is ask if they agree or disagree, go further detail into it, or find more about the history of it. All right, so this last point's also extremely important. You don't have to analyze art all the time. So the thing about saying you'll go to jail if you don't analyze art, that's a lie, obviously. Like I said, sometimes I just don't want to think about art. Like after this, I'm going to watch a movie, and I'm not going to analyze everything about it. Sometimes, I like analyzing something, especially if I've watched it more than once. But, for this class, try your best. But sometimes you need to just take a break from thinking too much about things and just, watch a movie, And that's the hard part about being a creator sometimes, is that if you make art, then you might overanalyze things and art might be less enjoyable. That's the way the cookie crumbles in the jungle. But regardless, this is also very important. If you hate something and don't have anything constructive or thoughtful to say about it, like Andy Rooney in that video, don't talk about it. That just sucks. Adding negativity in the world is awful. Adding constructive criticism, which is basically saying, I don't like this because of this, and here's how I might enjoy it better. That's good. That's helpful. That's starting a dialogue. Just saying this sucks and stopping there, that's not helpful. Is it the same thing as saying, "Oh, I love this artwork"? You could argue that, but I'd say probably not, because um, it is the same in the sense that if you're just stopping there. But the thing is, having a more positive sense might get more people interested in it, whereas being negative about it might want make people not want to look at it and not want to analyze it. So I would say they're not the equivalent, but they can be kind of similar. So we don't have time for this. But when you look at this on your own, just do this timer and write down what you want from this class. Um, Actually, let's just do it right now while I find my daughter. I don't know where she is. Let me mute that. I have no idea where my daughter is, and I'm scared. I can't move. Five, four, three, two, one. All right. You don't need to necessarily share it with me. You can if you want. That was just an exercise. All right. So this class will explore many different perspectives and ideas of art. And yes, I chose this image purposefully. Perspectives. Ha ha ha. So we'll talk more about it, but basically, um, I've had a lot of teachers. I've learned from a lot of different sources, and not everything is the same between these sources. So I'm gonna try to include as many different perspectives as I can. All right. So again, what you get from this class is what the effort you is what you put into it. So if you don't try, you're not going to get much out of this class. If you look at an abstract art and you just dismiss it, you're not going to get much out of it. But if you look at an abstract art that you don't like and read about it and think about it, you still might not like it, but you might have a deeper understanding of, okay, I understand why this person would do this. I still don't like it, but at least like I know, and it can open up new avenues of thinking. So these are the future topics. Next week is categorizing art, purposes of art, art versus craft, elements of art and principles of design for week 3. Week 4, media and materials. Week 5, time and comics. Week 6, video games. Week 7, understanding art meta. Week 8, art is pretentious / art and money. Week 9, art versus artists. Week 10, bonus topics. So that's Memorial Day. I could do a bonus stream if you want. We don't have to. It's really up to the class. So this 13-minute video, which is from the best art YouTube channel in existence called The Art Assignment, this is basically a summary of this class. Like if you have to drop out for whatever reason, watch this video and you'll come out with a lot more knowledge. Obviously, I have more than 13 minutes worth of material to talk about. So, yeah, I hope y'all come back. And let me transition to just me. So as far as the next classes go, there's probably going to be more material than I can talk about in an hour. So there's going to be a lot you'll be doing on your own. And for those of you who missed it, so right now I'm streaming on Twitch, but I'm going to make a survey with my students and ask them if they want to continue on Twitch or switch to Zoom. And I'm teaching them 4 to 5 p.m. PST. I'm going to also survey my class asking like, is this time okay? Do we want it an hour or two earlier? Do we want it on a Sunday? So yeah, stay tuned. I will post